The summer sun was shining bright, making the small community pool a perfect escape for families and kids looking to cool down. The water shimmered under the sunlight, reflecting waves of laughter and splashes from excited swimmers. Among them was a teenage boy who had been looking forward to this day all week. He had finished his school assignments early and wanted to enjoy a few hours of relaxation before the week began again. With his towel draped over the chair and a bottle of water beside him, he felt happy and free, ready to spend the day swimming and enjoying the sun. The pool was lively. Children were playing with inflatable toys. Couples were lounging on deck chairs and lifeguards watched over the scene carefully. Music played softly from a nearby speaker, blending with the sounds of laughter and splashing water. The boy joined a group of friends in the shallow end, and they started a playful race to see who could swim across the pool the fastest. It was a carefree moment, full of energy and joy, the kind of simple happiness that comes from a sunny day spent in good company. As he floated on his back, letting the cool water support him, he noticed a woman walking toward him from the pool entrance. She was in her late 40s, dressed in a bright swimsuit with a large sun hat, and had a stern look on her face. At first, he thought she might just be heading to the pool for her own swim, but as she got closer, her expression turned hard, and he felt a sudden tension in the air. She stopped right at the edge where he was swimming and folded her arms, staring at him in a way that made him uneasy. "You need to leave this pool right now," she said sharply, her voice cutting through the noise around them. The boy blinked, confused. He had every right to be there. This was a public community pool. He didn't understand why she was singling him out. "Excuse me?" he asked politely, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm allowed to be here. I didn't do anything wrong." The woman's eyes narrowed and she shook her head. "I don't care. You need to leave. I don't want you in this pool." Her tone was firm, almost threatening, and it made nearby swimmers turn their heads. Some families paused in their activities, sensing that a confrontation was about to happen. The boy felt a mix of shock and embarrassment. His heart started to race, but he tried to stay calm. He looked around, hoping someone would intervene or at least understand what was happening. He took a few steps toward the edge of the pool to get out, thinking that maybe moving would help de-escalate the situation. But before he could leave, the woman spoke again, louder this time. "I said get out now." Her voice carried over the splashing water, drawing the attention of the lifeguards and other swimmers. Some parents whispered to each other, shaking their heads at the scene unfolding before them. The boy felt the eyes of strangers on him, and a mix of anger and sadness welled up inside. He had never been treated like this before, especially not in such a public place where he was just trying to enjoy himself. He tried to reason with her. "I've done nothing wrong. This is a public pool and I have every right to be here. Please, there's no need to make this difficult." His voice was calm, but he could feel it shaking slightly. The woman didn't respond. She just pointed at the water and repeated her demand with more intensity. "I don't care about rights. You're leaving now." Nearby, a few teenagers and parents had started filming the incident on their phones, sensing that it was unfair and could be important to document. Some approached cautiously, trying to offer support without escalating the situation. One woman said softly, "Hey, maybe you should just calm down. Let him stay, there's no problem here." The woman ignored her and continued to glare at the boy, her anger evident and unyielding. The boy's friends started to notice the tension. They swam closer, surrounding him in a protective circle. "Hey, what's going on? Why is she yelling at you?" one of them asked. The boy shook his head, unable to fully explain the situation. "I don't know. She just wants me to leave. I didn't do anything." His friends were shocked. They had never seen someone treated this way for no reason, and they were angry on his behalf. They offered words of encouragement, telling him to stay calm and that he had done nothing wrong. The lifeguards intervened at this point, approaching the woman to see what was happening. "Ma'am, please calm down. Everyone here has the right to use the pool," one lifeguard said gently but firmly. The woman turned to the lifeguard, her face red with frustration, and said, "This boy doesn't belong here. He needs to leave." The lifeguard looked back at the boy, then at the woman, clearly understanding that the demand was baseless. He nodded at the boy, signaling that he could stay, but the woman was not satisfied. She continued to argue, her voice rising, drawing more attention from everyone around. The boy felt his face flush with a mix of fear and anger. He had been quiet, respectful, and patient, But being treated this way in front of everyone made him feel small and humiliated. He wanted to say something, to defend himself, but he was careful not to escalate the situation. He knew that reacting angrily might make things worse. Instead, he focused on staying calm, hoping the woman would eventually realize she had no right to treat him this way. Parents nearby whispered to their children, explaining that sometimes people act unfairly because of ignorance and prejudice. They tried to turn the situation into a learning moment, encouraging their kids to notice how standing up calmly and respectfully was important. Some older swimmers exchanged glances, clearly frustrated by the unnecessary confrontation. The atmosphere around the pool had shifted. What was once a carefree day of fun had become tense and uncomfortable. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next, but the boy remained composed, determined not to let the woman's anger ruin his day. As the argument continued, a few people began offering support verbally. "It's okay, you're fine," one parent said. "Just stay calm, she can't kick you out." The boy appreciated the encouragement. He focused on his breathing, reminding himself that he was not doing anything wrong. He stayed in the shallow end, floating and trying to appear relaxed even though his mind was racing. Every time the woman shouted or gestured, he felt the sting of unfairness, but he refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing him upset. The tension was palpable. The woman, frustrated that the boy was not leaving, started pacing back and forth along the pool edge. Her tone was harsh and her words were sharp, but the boy ignored her. He was determined not to escalate the situation. He kept his gaze steady, looking around to see the faces of other swimmers. Many were supportive, some nodding or whispering words of encouragement. He realized that he was not alone, and that gave him a small sense of relief. Despite the hostility, the boy tried to remain polite. "Please, there's no need to make this a problem. I'm just here to swim and enjoy the day," he said, his voice calm and respectful. The woman's anger seemed to intensify, but the boy refused to respond with anger. He understood that reacting negatively would only worsen the situation. His goal was to stay calm and composed, to show that he was not afraid or intimidated by her actions. Other teens at the pool started talking among themselves, expressing their shock and anger at what was happening. They discussed how unfair it was and how they would have felt if it had been them. Some of them continued swimming, but they kept an eye on the situation, ready to step in if necessary. The boy noticed the support and felt slightly encouraged, realizing that by staying calm, he could maintain control over the situation and not let the woman's anger dictate his actions. Time seemed to stretch as the confrontation continued. The woman was growing more frustrated and the boy was determined to stay composed. He moved slightly to the side, giving her space but not leaving the pool. He knew that he had every right to be there, and he was not going to let her make him feel unwelcome. The lifeguards watched closely, ready to step in if needed, but they also understood that the boy was handling the situation with remarkable patience. Finally, after several tense minutes, the woman paused, breathing heavily and clearly unsure how to continue. The crowd around them remained silent, watching closely, sensing that the moment was building toward a turning point. The boy stayed calm, his focus on maintaining his composure and not letting fear take over. He knew that this moment was difficult, but he also knew that standing firm and calm was the right approach. He floated gently in the water, waiting to see what would happen next and hoping that someone would step in to end the confrontation fairly and peacefully. The boy remained in the pool, his heart still pounding from the confrontation, trying to steady his breathing. He knew that losing his temper or reacting angrily would only make things worse. He floated for a moment, focusing on the cool water and the gentle movement beneath him, trying to regain a sense of calm. Around him, the atmosphere at the pool had changed. The bright, carefree energy of the day had shifted into something tense and uncertain. Parents held their children a little closer, and people who had been playing in the pool began to glance at the unfolding scene with curiosity and concern. Some of the teenagers at the pool began whispering to each other, casting disapproving looks toward the woman. "I can't believe she's acting like this," one of them murmured. Another nodded, holding her water toy tightly. They were clearly frustrated, but they didn't want to interfere directly in a way that might escalate the situation. Still, their eyes were alert, and they were quietly offering support to the boy by staying nearby and watching the woman's every move. The woman, however, seemed determined not to back down. She continued pacing near the pool, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Every so often she would stop and point at the boy, repeating her demand that he leave. Her voice was firm and sharp, echoing over the water, but it also carried an edge of uncertainty. It was clear that she expected the boy to be intimidated, to comply immediately, and to leave without a fight. But the boy stayed calm, refusing to give her the reaction she seemed to be looking for. Some parents and bystanders began speaking up. A woman near the side of the pool said, "Excuse me, sir, this is a public pool. He has every right to be here." The woman ignored her, turning instead to scowl at the boy more intensely. A few people took out their phones to record the scene, sensing that the situation was unfair and might need documentation. The boy could feel the tension in the air, but he also noticed the subtle signs of support from those around him. This small recognition gave him a bit of reassurance, knowing he was not entirely alone. The lifeguards approached again, their voices calm but firm. "Please, ma'am, you need to let him be. This is a public pool and everyone is allowed to swim here. There's no need for a confrontation." The woman's face turned red and she waved her hand dismissively, trying to regain control of the situation. "I don't care what rules you have."
"He doesn't belong here,"
she shouted. The lifeguards exchanged glances, clearly exasperated but determined to maintain order. One stepped closer to the woman, gently but firmly insisting she step back and allow the boy to remain. Meanwhile, the boy's friends gathered around the shallow end, trying to provide a sense of solidarity. "It's okay, you're fine. Don't let her get to you," one friend said quietly. The boy nodded, grateful for the support, but he remained focused on staying composed. He understood that reacting emotionally might make the situation worse, and he was determined to keep control over his own actions, no matter how unfair the confrontation felt. A few older swimmers started speaking to the woman directly, trying to appeal to her sense of reason. "Please, there's no need to cause a scene. He's doing nothing wrong," one of them said. But she continued to argue, insisting that she had the right to decide who could be in the pool. Her words were sharp, but there was a noticeable tremor in her voice, as if she was beginning to realize that her authority was not absolute in this setting. Still, she refused to back down, clinging to her own perception of entitlement. The boy felt a mixture of anger and sadness. It was frustrating to be judged and targeted for no reason at all, especially in a place meant for enjoyment and relaxation. He tried to remind himself that he was not responsible for the woman's behavior, that her anger was about her own prejudice, not anything he had done. Still, the humiliation of being publicly challenged weighed heavily on him, and he felt the sting of unfair treatment keenly. Some parents moved closer to their children, explaining quietly what was happening. "Sometimes people act unfairly because of ignorance or fear," one mother said softly. "It's important to notice how we respond, to stay calm and respectful even when others are not." The boy overheard this, and it reinforced his own approach to the situation. He kept floating in the water, trying to appear relaxed even though his mind was racing, thinking about how to handle the confrontation without making it worse. As minutes passed, the woman's frustration grew. She started gesturing wildly, pointing at the boy and demanding he leave. "I won't have him here. I'm telling you, he needs to go now," she yelled. The lifeguard, sensing the rising tension, stepped between her and the boy, keeping a calm but firm stance. They told her once again that she could not make that demand and that she needed to step back. This intervention created a small barrier, giving the boy some breathing space and reducing the immediate threat of the confrontation escalating further. Despite the chaos around him, the boy tried to focus on small, grounding details: the feeling of the water against his skin, the sound of children laughing in the distance, the gentle warmth of the sun on his face. These small observations helped him stay centered, preventing fear or panic from taking over. He was determined not to let the woman's aggression ruin his day or his sense of self-worth. A few nearby teens whispered to each other, clearly upset by the unfair treatment. "Can you believe this?" one said, shaking her head. Another added, "It's like she's punishing him for nothing. We have to stay calm, but this is ridiculous." Their concern and quiet support gave the boy some hope that more people were noticing the injustice and that he was not entirely alone in facing it. The woman continued pacing, her hands on her hips and her voice rising in frustration. She seemed caught between determination and uncertainty, unsure how to force the boy out of the pool. Her aggressive stance was no longer completely confident. There was a hint of doubt in her expression. The boy noticed this subtly. understanding that she was beginning to realize she could not dominate the situation as she had intended. Still, he remained cautious, not wanting to provoke her further. Nearby parents exchanged looks, some whispering words of encouragement to the boy. "It's okay, stay calm. You're doing the right thing," one parent said softly. The boy felt a small wave of relief, realizing that more people were noticing his composure and recognizing that he had done nothing wrong. This quiet acknowledgement helped him maintain his confidence in the face of aggression and prejudice. The tension continued to hang over the pool, making what was supposed to be a carefree day feel heavy and uncomfortable. Children played cautiously, sensing the serious atmosphere, while other adults tried to keep their focus on their own activities, but kept glancing at the confrontation. The boy floated quietly, maintaining his composure and refusing to be intimidated, determined to show that he would not allow unfair treatment to dictate his actions. Time seemed to stretch, each moment feeling longer than the last. The woman's shouting began to attract more attention, with a few people taking out their phones to capture the incident. Some whispered words of disapproval while others simply watched, unsure how to help without escalating things. The boy remained calm, understanding that his own measured response could set the tone for the rest of the encounter. Finally, the woman paused, breathing heavily and clearly struggling to assert control. She glared at the boy one last time and then stepped back slightly, her confidence shaken by the lifeguard's intervention and the quiet support from those around him. The boy continued to float, feeling a small sense of victory for maintaining his composure despite the unfair and public confrontation. The tension had not entirely lifted, but he had managed to navigate the situation without giving in to fear or anger, and that was a small but important triumph. Around the pool, people slowly returned to their own activities, though the air still held a sense of lingering tension. The boy's friends stayed close, offering quiet encouragement, while the lifeguards remained vigilant, ensuring that no further escalation occurred. The woman continued to glare, but her energy seemed drained, as if she were beginning to understand that she could not control the situation the way she had hoped. The boy took a deep breath, realizing that he had survived the confrontation and remained true to himself, ready for whatever came next. The air at the pool felt thick with tension. The boy continued floating, trying to stay calm, though his heart still raced from the confrontation. The woman's glare never left him, but now there was a subtle shift. She was no longer yelling as loudly, and her pacing seemed uncertain. It was clear that she expected the boy to break, to leave in frustration or fear, but he remained composed. He kept his eyes on the water, focusing on the gentle waves and the sun reflecting off the surface, doing his best to calm his mind and hold on to a sense of normalcy. Then, without warning, a figure approached from the pool entrance. It was his mother. She had been running errands nearby and had come to check on him. As she came into view, the boy felt a mix of relief and anticipation. He knew that her presence would change the dynamic immediately. She was not only his mother, but a well-respected local politician, known for her advocacy and calm authority. She walked with a confident and composed air, and as soon as she saw the confrontation, her eyes narrowed slightly, recognizing the unfair situation. The woman, noticing the new arrival, stiffened and her confidence wavered. She had expected a scared teenager, someone who might comply immediately without question. She certainly had not expected a figure of authority and influence to appear. The boy's mother approached calmly, keeping her posture strong but approachable. Her presence alone seemed to command respect, and the pool crowd instinctively noticed the shift in energy. Murmurs ran through the crowd, some people whispering about who she was, while others simply observed the sudden tension. The boy's mother reached the poolside and knelt slightly to speak to her son. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. He nodded, grateful for her arrival. "I'm fine," he replied quietly, though inside he felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had managed to stay composed, but having his mother there added a layer of security that words could not express. She reached out and gently touched his shoulder, giving him a reassuring nod. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. The boy could feel the tension in his chest ease slightly, knowing he was no longer facing the confrontation alone. The woman across the pool suddenly realized she was no longer the center of authority in this situation. Her face showed a mixture of shock and disbelief as she took in the mother's presence. "Who are you?" she demanded, trying to regain some control, though her voice lacked the earlier confidence. The boy's mother stood tall, her voice measured and composed as she responded, "I am his mother. I am here to make sure he is treated fairly. There is no reason for this behavior." The words were calm but carried an unmistakable authority. The woman's gaze faltered and she began to stammer, unsure how to respond. Nearby, the crowd grew more attentive. People were whispering and exchanging glances, sensing that the confrontation had reached a pivotal moment. Some recorded the scene with their phones, while others simply watched, curious about the outcome. The mother's presence had shifted the balance of power, and the woman who had been so aggressive moments ago now appeared small and unsure. The boy felt a swell of pride in his mother's calm and measured approach, recognizing the impact her presence had on the situation. The boy's mother moved closer, speaking directly to the woman. "Everyone has the right to enjoy public spaces. Discrimination or intimidation is not acceptable here. Please step back and allow him to enjoy the pool." Her tone was firm yet courteous, leaving no room for argument. The woman's anger flickered but was overshadowed by embarrassment. She tried to argue, but her words came out in a weak, fragmented manner. I just, she began, trailing off as the mother's steady gaze held her accountable. The crowd remained silent, watching the interaction with a mix of awe and support. The boy watched closely, feeling both nervous and relieved. He had stayed calm during the initial confrontation, but seeing his mother handle the situation with such grace and authority was empowering. He realized the importance of having someone who could advocate for him, someone who could transform a potentially humiliating experience into a moment of justice. The mother's presence not only protected him, but also set a powerful example for everyone observing the scene. The woman attempted one last defiant gesture, pointing at the boy and raising her voice. "He doesn't belong here. I won't have him in my pool." Her words, however, lacked the previous force. The boy's mother remained steady, her voice calm but resolute. "This is a public pool. He belongs here just as much as anyone else. You are not in a position to decide who can or cannot be here." Her words carried weight, reinforced by the respect she had earned in the community. The woman's face turned red with a mix of anger and embarrassment. She opened her mouth to respond but found no words that could counter the mother's authority. Around the pool, the onlookers began whispering among themselves. Many expressed admiration for the mother's calm handling of the situation. Some parents quietly praised her, while teens nodded in recognition of the boy's composure and the way his mother had diffused the confrontation. The woman who had caused the scene was now clearly isolated, her aggression no longer supported by the dynamics of the environment. It was as if the balance of power had shifted completely, leaving her without a foothold to continue her intimidation. The boy's friends remained nearby, watching in awe as his mother navigated the tense situation. They whispered words of encouragement and support, proud of both the boy and his mother. The boy himself felt a mixture of emotions, relief, pride, and a growing sense of empowerment. He realized that standing calm and composed in the face of unfairness, combined with the support of someone who cared and could act decisively, could turn a difficult situation around. The woman, sensing her authority slipping completely, took a step back. She opened her mouth to speak but found no words that could carry the same weight as the mother's calm and confident statements. Her previous certainty had vanished, replaced by an awkward silence. The lifeguards remained nearby, ensuring that the situation did not escalate further, but their presence was now more about observation than intervention. The crowd had collectively recognized the mother's authority and the boy's right to remain in the pool. The boy's mother knelt slightly again, speaking softly to him. "You did the right thing by staying calm. You didn't let fear or anger control you." The boy nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude and understanding. He realized that the ordeal had tested him, teaching him a lesson about patience, composure, and the power of standing firm in the face of unfair treatment. It was a lesson he would carry with him for a long time, strengthened by the unwavering support of his mother. The woman, seeing that she could no longer dominate the situation, finally turned and walked away. Her departure was slow and awkward, as if she were leaving without fully understanding what had happened. The boy's mother remained by the poolside, watching her leave and ensuring that the boy felt safe and supported. The tension gradually eased, replaced by a sense of relief and quiet admiration from the onlookers. The crowd began to resume its normal activities, though the memory of the confrontation lingered in the air. Children returned to play, parents continued their conversations, and the teens in the pool splashed and laughed more freely, their spirits lifted by the resolution. The boy floated gently, feeling the warmth of the sun and the support of those around him. He realized that the day, which had started with tension and fear, had turned into a powerful lesson about fairness, resilience, and the importance of having someone to advocate for you. His mother stayed by his side, speaking softly and encouraging him to continue enjoying the pool. "Don't let anyone ruin your day," she said. "You have every right to be here, and you handled yourself with courage." The boy felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for her presence, but for the way she had transformed a frightening and unfair situation into one of empowerment and dignity. He knew that the lesson of this day would stay with him for years to come, shaping the way he approached challenges and injustice in the future. By the time the sun began to lower in the sky, the boy felt a renewed sense of calm and happiness. The earlier tension had been replaced by a quiet confidence, a feeling that he could navigate difficult situations with composure and integrity. The presence of his mother had not only protected him, but had also provided a powerful example of leadership, fairness, and courage. The crowd had witnessed not just a resolution, but a lesson in dignity and strength that would resonate long after the day at the pool was over. The woman's confidence had visibly faltered after the arrival of the boy's mother. Her earlier aggression, which had seemed unstoppable, had turned into awkward uncertainty. She stood near the edge of the pool, wringing her hands and looking around as if searching for support that was no longer there. Her eyes darted between the boy, his mother, and the growing crowd of onlookers. It was clear that she had expected compliance, a frightened reaction, or at least an argument she could dominate. Instead, she faced calm authority and a boy who had refused to be intimidated. The boy's mother, still standing by the poolside, maintained her composed posture. She didn't raise her voice unnecessarily, but every word she spoke carried weight. "Everyone here deserves to enjoy this space without fear of discrimination or harassment," she said, her eyes meeting those of the woman. "Your behavior is not acceptable, and it needs to stop now." Her tone was firm but not cruel, a combination that conveyed both authority and fairness. The woman's cheeks flushed and she shifted uncomfortably, realizing that her attempts to assert control had failed. Some of the bystanders began to speak up, offering quiet support. One parent said, "He has every right to be here. You don't get to decide who belongs." A few teens nodded in agreement, expressing their frustration at the unfairness of the situation. The crowd's subtle but growing presence amplified the shift in dynamics. The woman, who had initially seemed so dominant, now appeared isolated and small. The weight of community scrutiny made her hesitate, as if she were beginning to understand that her actions were not only wrong but also socially unacceptable. The boy watched carefully, feeling a mixture of pride and relief. He had remained calm throughout the confrontation, but seeing his mother handle the situation with such skill and authority inspired him. He realized that standing firm, paired with support from someone who could advocate on his behalf, could completely change the course of a tense situation. He felt a sense of validation and safety, knowing he was no longer alone in facing unfair treatment. The woman attempted to speak, but her words came out in a fragmented and uncertain manner. I just thought," she began, but she could not finish her thought coherently. The boy's mother gave her a patient but firm look. "Thought what? That you could intimidate someone into leaving a public space? That's not acceptable," she said calmly. Her words, though gentle in tone, carried undeniable authority. The woman's hands trembled slightly as she realized that she had no argument that could hold up against reason and fairness. Around the pool, the atmosphere had shifted completely. Families who had been watching from a distance now whispered amongst themselves, expressing admiration for the mother's calm handling of the situation and the boy's courage in remaining composed. Some of the teens who had been recording on their phones exchanged looks of approval, acknowledging that what they had witnessed was both unfair and resolved in a dignified manner. The woman's isolation was now complete, and it became clear that she could not continue her aggression without further public embarrassment. The lifeguards, who had been monitoring the situation closely, continued to stay nearby but allowed the mother to take the lead. They recognized the importance of letting the situation resolve naturally, now that the boy was safe and the woman had lost her apparent authority. Their presence offered additional assurance, creating a sense of calm oversight without further escalation. The boy felt a deep sense of relief knowing that the adults responsible for the pool's safety were attentive and supportive. The woman made another attempt to speak, her voice low and uncertain. I didn't mean any harm." Her words were weak and unconvincing. Failing to regain any semblance of the earlier aggression, the boy's mother shook her head gently. "Intent doesn't excuse the impact of your actions. You cannot treat someone this way, publicly or privately." The simplicity and clarity of her statement left no room for argument. The woman's shoulders slumped slightly as she processed the reality of the situation, her earlier confidence replaced by embarrassment and self-awareness. Some bystanders began to approach the boy, offering quiet encouragement. "You did the right thing by staying calm," one parent said. Another added, "It's impressive how composed you were under pressure." The boy nodded, feeling a mix of pride and gratitude. The support from strangers, combined with his mother's presence, reinforced his understanding that standing firm and composed in the face of injustice was both powerful and necessary. The woman finally took a step back, her hands lowering to her sides. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something else, but no words came. The boy's mother maintained eye contact, allowing the silence to underscore the importance of respect and fairness. Around them, the pool returned to a quieter energy. Children resumed playing and families continued their activities, though the incident had left a lasting impression. The boy's experience was a vivid reminder of the difference between intimidation and integrity. The boy's mother knelt slightly to speak to him, her tone soft but reassuring. "You handled this with courage and patience. You didn't let fear or anger control you. That's something to be proud of." The boy nodded, feeling the warmth of her words and the strength of her support. He realized that the confrontation, while uncomfortable and unfair, had become a learning experience. It taught him about resilience, composure, and the power of having someone who could advocate for him in challenging moments. As the sun continued to shine over the pool, the woman made a final, hesitant attempt to leave without further incident. Her departure was slow and awkward, each step measured as if she were leaving behind more than just the pool. The boy's mother remained by the poolside, ensuring that he felt safe and supported, her presence a steady anchor in the aftermath of tension. The crowd's attention slowly shifted back to their own activities, though whispers and glances acknowledged the lesson they had witnessed. The boy floated gently in the pool, letting the water carry him as he reflected on what had just occurred. He had been the target of unfair treatment, yet he had maintained his composure. His mother's intervention had not only protected him, but had also provided a powerful example of authority, fairness, and dignity. He realized that the day, which had started with tension and fear, had turned into a meaningful experience about standing firm, facing injustice, and finding strength through calm resilience. Some of the teens who had observed the incident spoke quietly to each other, expressing admiration for how it had been handled. "That was amazing," one said. "I can't believe she stayed so calm and his mom handled it perfectly." Another nodded, adding, "It's rare to see someone deal with something so unfair without losing their composure. It's inspiring." The boy overheard their whispers and felt a quiet sense of validation. The lesson was not just for him but for everyone who had witnessed the confrontation. It was a reminder that fairness and patience could prevail over aggression and prejudice. The mother continued to reassure her son, speaking softly and gently, encouraging him to enjoy the rest of the day. "Don't let anyone ruin your experience here," she said. "You have every right to be here, and standing your ground calmly shows great strength." The boy felt a deep sense of gratitude, not only for her presence but for the way she had transformed a potentially humiliating and frightening situation into a powerful lesson about dignity, courage, and the importance of justice. The pool gradually returned to a sense of normalcy, but the incident left an impression on everyone present. Families spoke quietly about what had happened, reflecting on the importance of standing up against unfair treatment and the impact of calm, authoritative intervention. The boy continued to swim and play with his friends, feeling a sense of empowerment and relief. He had faced an uncomfortable challenge, navigated it with patience, and come through stronger, supported by his mother and the subtle solidarity of the community. By the end of the day, as the sun began to lower in the sky, the boy felt a renewed sense of confidence and calm. The earlier tension had transformed into a profound lesson about resilience, the importance of support, and the power of standing up for oneself with dignity. The mother's presence had not only protected him, but had also demonstrated leadership and fairness to everyone who had witnessed the incident. The experience would remain with him, shaping how he approached similar challenges in the future and reinforcing the value of courage, patience, and integrity. The pool gradually returned to a more relaxed atmosphere, though the events of the day had left an impression on everyone present. Children splashed and laughed again, parents watched attentively, and the boy floated calmly in the water, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. The tension that had dominated the earlier hours was gone, replaced by a quiet awareness of the importance of fairness, respect, and courage. The boy's mother stayed close, keeping a watchful eye while allowing him to enjoy the rest of the day. Her presence was reassuring, but she also gave him space to feel confident and independent. The woman who had caused the confrontation had long since left the pool area, her departure slow and awkward. Her earlier aggression and arrogance were replaced by embarrassment and a sense of defeat. It was evident to everyone that her attempts to intimidate had failed, and the community around the pool had silently acknowledged that she had crossed a line. Conversations among parents and teens reflected a mixture of disapproval toward the woman and admiration for the boy's resilience and the mother's calm authority. People discussed how rare it was to witness someone handle such a situation with dignity and composure. The boy's friends swam over to him, their expressions a mix of relief and admiration. "That was incredible how you stayed calm," one said. "I don't think I could have done that." Another nodded, adding, "Your mom was amazing too. She handled it so well." The boy smiled quietly, feeling a mixture of pride and gratitude. He had faced a moment of injustice and managed to stay composed, but the support and guidance from his mother had made all the difference. It was a lesson in strength, patience, and the importance of standing up for oneself while maintaining dignity. As the day went on, the boy and his friends played and swam together, laughter returning to the pool. The earlier confrontation had not spoiled the day entirely. Instead, it had become a story of resilience and empowerment. The boy realized that while the woman had tried to diminish him with unfairness and prejudice, he had not let her actions define him. He had remained true to himself, and with the support of someone who could advocate effectively, he had experienced a powerful victory. The boy's mother remained nearby, occasionally offering words of encouragement and guidance. "Remember, staying calm in the face of unfairness shows real strength," she said. "You handled yourself with dignity, and that is something to be proud of." Her words were gentle, but they carried a profound sense of truth. The boy absorbed them, understanding that the day's events had been more than just an uncomfortable encounter. They had been a lesson in character, integrity, and resilience. Nearby, other families discussed the incident quietly, acknowledging how rare it was to see such a situation handled with calm authority and composure. Some parents spoke to their own children about the importance of standing up to unfair treatment without responding with anger or fear. Teens whispered to each other, inspired by the boy's courage and the mother's leadership. The scene had transformed from one of conflict into a moment of learning and reflection for the entire community. The boy took a moment to float on his back, gazing at the bright sky above. He felt a sense of empowerment he hadn't anticipated. The confrontation had been difficult, and at times he had felt vulnerable. But now he recognized the strength that came from patience, composure, and the support of those who cared for him. The lesson was clear. Even in the face of unfairness and intimidation, it was possible to stand firm without losing one's dignity. As the afternoon progressed, the pool became more lively again, with children laughing and families enjoying their time. The boy's friends played games and he joined in, feeling lighter and more confident than before. Every time he glanced at his mother, he felt reassured by her calm presence. She had not only protected him, but had also shown him how to handle challenges with grace and authority. The experience had strengthened their bond, giving him a deeper appreciation for her guidance and the power of standing up for what was right. The boy's mother took a moment to speak with a few parents who had witnessed the incident. She explained the importance of addressing unfair behavior calmly and effectively, highlighting that standing up against discrimination was not about confrontation, but about protecting oneself and asserting dignity. The parents nodded in agreement, expressing their admiration for both her approach and the boy's composure. The conversation reinforced the broader lesson of the day, that fairness, patience, and courage could create meaningful change in even the most challenging situations. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting warm golden light across the pool, the boy felt a sense of closure. The tension and fear of earlier hours had been replaced by understanding, empowerment, and a renewed sense of confidence. He realized that the incident, while uncomfortable and unfair, had become a defining moment. It taught him that he could face challenges with patience, assert his rights with dignity, and rely on the support of those who cared about him. The boy's friends gathered around, sharing stories of the day and reflecting on what had happened. They laughed and joked, but underneath the light-hearted conversation was a shared respect for the boy's composure and the mother's leadership. The pool, once a site of confrontation, had transformed into a place of learning, empowerment, and community support. The boy felt a deep sense of gratitude, knowing that he had emerged stronger and more confident from the experience. Before leaving the pool, the boy's mother spoke once more to him, her voice calm and reassuring. "Always remember what you learned today. Standing firm and staying calm in the face of unfairness is a form of strength that will serve you well throughout your life." The boy nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He had faced a difficult situation, and with patience, composure, and support, he had navigated it successfully. The lesson would remain with him, guiding him in future challenges and reinforcing the values of dignity, fairness, and resilience. As they left the pool area, the boy glanced back, feeling a sense of accomplishment and reflection. He knew that the incident would stay with him, not as a source of shame or fear, but as a moment of growth and empowerment. The day had started with tension and confrontation, but ended with understanding, strength, and a renewed sense of confidence. The boy felt ready to face future challenges, knowing that he could stand firm, remain composed, and rely on the support of those who believed in fairness and justice. The community around the pool, too, had been impacted by the events. Parents and children had witnessed a lesson in courage, dignity, and the power of calm intervention. Conversations would continue, spreading awareness of the importance of standing up against unfairness without resorting to anger or aggression. The boy's experience had not only empowered him, but had also left a lasting impression on the people who had observed, creating a ripple effect of reflection and learning. By the end of the day, as the sun set and families began to leave the pool, the boy felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. He had faced an unfair challenge, maintained his composure, and learned valuable lessons about resilience, dignity, and the power of support. His mother had guided him through the situation, showing him the impact of calm authority and the importance of standing up for what is right. The day, which had begun with confrontation and tension, ended with empowerment, understanding, and a lasting sense of pride. It was a day the boy would remember for years to come, a story of courage, fairness, and the strength that comes from staying true to oneself.